Hey guys, it's Luke. I just wanted to jump on real quick and answer one of this week's questions. So again, in the Facebook group, you guys left me a few questions. Some of them I can get to right away, like the one I'm answering today. Others, which I know I specified, was more in-depth and something to probably look into and do a little research on, and then write my opinion on there. And then there's one on there about technical running, trail running. And so I think I might have Josh Eberly, who is our trail guru coach. I think I might have him maybe say something or write down his thoughts for that. So today we're going to talk about doubles. And so Lindsay had asked this, and basically when does it make sense to do doubles? And in the time of recording this, obviously it's, the schedules are way off. A lot of people aren't even really training right now. But the question remains, when does it make sense to do doubles for running? And so, and then that was followed up with another question, was basically saying, well, is it only for elites and things like that? So I want to jump in there real quick and kind of go over that. So in response to Lindsay specifically, because she's saying that in the afternoons, she gets the urge to go for a 20 or 30-minute run. But I think instead she does a walk, I don't know, with her family or whatever the case is. But in that case, I think if you're already running in the morning, most people aren't running a super big amount right now. So it doesn't necessarily make sense to run that mileage in the morning and then come back and do it at night. Whereas if you're going for a walk, that might even just make more sense because we'll get into it a little bit, but that walk with your family might just be a better option anyway, right? Or finding something else. And ultimately that's what we do is both my wife and I run in the morning. We alternate, like right now I'm going earlier, and just because it just kind of started happening, and I'm usually up earlier anyway, and now it's daylight by 6:30 here now. So we can get out pretty early and everybody's still sleeping. So I can do that. And then in the afternoon, if it's warmer, like we walk down to her little friend's house and they play in the front yard, 6 feet apart, for the most part. And then, or they come over here, whatever the case is. So there's a lot of other things going on in the afternoon. So, so that might actually make more sense at this point, just to get that kind of low impact type of thing in, where it's just more of a fun thing than just going for another run. So I think you have to think of it in terms of practicality, right? And so does it make sense to prep for a run twice? So get up in the morning, do your routine, go for a run, get around, take a shower, all this and that, and then come back in the evening and do the exact same thing for a 20 to 30-minute run. Does that make sense? And not only you can answer that question in your situation. Like if you're a single person with no other responsibilities, then that might make perfect sense. But where if you have a family and you have other obligations, that might be too much time for a 30-minute run, by the time it's all said and done. So you have to look at it in terms of that aspect as well. If you do have the urge to do something in the afternoon, maybe it makes more sense to do something strength oriented or mobility, or make sure you're getting your foam rolling in, or whatever the case is. That might be a better opportunity. So if you're running, say you're running 6 to 8 miles in the morning, do you necessarily need another 3 to 4 miles in the afternoon? Or are you better served taking 15 to 20 minutes and focusing on strength and mobility? In this case, I'd probably say with the athletes we deal with, they don't have that dedicated time for strength and mobility for the most part. And that might make more sense. I think ultimately you're going to see more gains from that, because the volume that you're running is fine. But you're going to get to a point where it's your strength and your mobility that's going to limit you more than the miles that you're running. So that might be something else to really think about. And so really that kind of depends on the situation. So if you're trying to get to a new level of mileage, so if, say you're running 50, 60 miles a week, and you do that pretty regularly, but to make that jump to where you're running over 8 to 10 miles at one time, you just don't necessarily have time to do that. And we see a lot with people in the mornings, they run and they go to work, and then that's their day. But they have time in the afternoon, maybe at lunch hour or maybe after work, where they can get a 30-minute run in. And that might be, maybe start with doing that once or twice a week, and just that automatically can add 6 to 8 miles to your week. And it's really less stress on the body than running 12 plus miles at one time, right? And so it might turn two regular runs a day and from being a long run. So 12 miles for a lot of people is going to take over an hour and a half, and that might just not be doable, and that might just not make sense. Whereas I do an 8 and a 4, I'm getting an hour run and a 30-minute run. That might make more sense at that point. But I'd only really do that if I was trying to get to a new level in mileage. And then over time, you might even replace some of those doubles with some of those longer single runs. But that's another discussion, I believe. I think the event matters as well. So if you're training for a marathon, it makes more sense to get the bigger runs in and not necessarily worry about the doubles. Whereas if you're training for a 5K or something like that and you want to just get a little bit more mileage in, it might make more sense because, one, your workouts are going to be far less in volume, right? So doing 3 miles worth of speed isn't going to be the same volume as is doing, a 10-mile tempo run for the marathon. So in order, if you want to keep your mileage up, doing a double might actually make more sense. For in that case, it might make more sense to do your workout in the morning and then go for a really, really easy shakeout run of 30 minutes in the evening, just to kind of, it even actually kind of enhances the recovery process, but just kind of keeps things moving and this and that. So that might be something to think about as well. And then you have to go into the fitness part of it. And from my experience, from a health, because I've been in both worlds. I've been in where just people just trying to get some sort of general health, and I'm in the world of making people get the most out of their bodies from a performance standpoint. And so I'd say that if you're running, there's a big difference between running 8 miles all at once versus running two runs of 4 and 4. So if you're in training for a race, running the 8 miles is probably going to be better from maximizing physiological things, right? Whereas if you're trying to get into the exercise world, you're new to running, you're new to just training for races or whatever the case is, you're just newer to the sport, losing weight, whatever the case is, it's more about just accumulating time over the course of the day, and doing breaking those one big run into 2 separate runs is an option, right? Because it's going to allow you to accumulate more time, whereas the 8-mile run might not be that possible, but doing 2 30-minute runs is ultimately going to net you more mileage and more time spent exercising over the course of the week than cutting those one short and then ultimately maybe getting hurt, missing some times. You will accumulate more time that way, from my experience. And then I've had people where it's literally like our easy runs are running to and from work. So is that ideal? I don't know. But it allows them to fit running into their life. It allows them to get more mileage in, because ultimately they're going to get more in doing that than if I just say, I have an hour a day if I don't run to and from work. So we have to maximize what we can get out of that hour. Whereas we can get a little bit more if we can get an hour to work and an hour, it's not usually that much, usually like 30 minutes either way, but it definitely gives us opportunities to get more volume in. So at the end of the day, I don't necessarily think it's an elite versus a recreational running type of thing. I think it's just more of what your situation is. So what I will say is that there is a difference. So like doing 4 and 4 isn't necessarily the same effect as getting 8 in. And I think that's just the biggest thing you have to take away from it. But ultimately, if I'm coaching somebody and they say, hey, listen, I don't have an hour and a half to put in the morning, but I can do an hour in the morning and then I can do 30 minutes in the afternoon. It does open. I would rather do that than just say, let's just not do the half hour. Whether it's running every day, and that's the thing, it doesn't have to be running every day either. It could be an hour running in the morning and then 30 minutes of strength mobility in the afternoon, or some days a week it could just be an easy run, to just kind of shake things out. That's perfectly fine. So I just think you have to really kind of recognize what your situation is, and what that situation is going to dictate how you handle those types of things. So that's my, kind of 30,000 foot view on it. But I think you just kind of take that for what it is and apply that to your own situation, and you'll be pretty good. So with that, I will let you go. Reminder that the sale is still going for 75% off apparel. Just go to lukehumphrey.com and then go to store and apparel, and it'll all be in there. So LHR 75. All right, guys, I'll talk to you later. See ya.